When your insurance company refuses to pay up, the state's supposed to help you. So why are consumers complaining to us? It's not happening. The dangers of driving next to oversized vehicles on Texas highways. Why our discovery has state leaders rethinking safety surrounding mobile homes on the highway. Good morning and thank you for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle. This week, some of our nation's top lawmakers headed down to the Texas-Mexico border to get a look firsthand at the area where President Donald Trump plans to build a border wall. The president wants construction to start in 6 months. He ordered workers to speed up the surveying and planning process to reach that goal. But some lawmakers want to know more about the impact. Our Anna Wernicke looks closer at the response they received along the border.
I asked last night as we were on the night patrol, I said, okay, there are 20 miles of wall here in the McAllen area. Is this effective? Is this a good idea? Does this help you do your job?
First Cruz, then Cornyn.
As somebody who represents Texas, I see a lot of attention to the border.
The two Republican senators from Texas led separate delegations this week in McAllen to get a closer look at the region where Trump wants to build a border wall.
I want it to be constructive, not destructive.
The wall that Donald Trump has proposed would be a disaster. A big mistake.
But a few Democrats seem to have their mind already made. During a roundtable on Monday, they stressed why Trump needs to be building bridges and not walls.
It would do damage to our ability to compete all over the world.
Protesters chanted a similar message on Wednesday when House Speaker Paul Ryan touched down in McAllen.
He's using the border as a photo op opportunity rather than speaking to people who are directly impacted.
Ryan was joined by two Texans, House Homeland Security Chairman Michael McCaul and Congressman John Carter. The group met with Border Patrol agents and local leaders during their visit, but didn't make any public appearances. In a statement following Wednesday's trip, Ryan said, quote, Congress is committed to securing the border and enforcing our laws. And together with the Trump administration, we will get this done. For the state of Texas, I'm Anna Wernicke.
For perspective on the border impact, we turn to our reporter roundtable. Julian Aguilar reports for the Texas Tribune on border issues, and Will Weissert is the Austin bureau chief for the Associated Press. Welcome, both of you. Thanks for having me. So you were down on the border this week. What was the general, consensus while the federal lawmakers were there touring everything?
It was lukewarm. Speaker Ryan went down for his first ever tour of the border, and Congressman Vela from Brownsville and Congressman Gonzalez from McAllen. They said, it's good that he's down here, but it takes a little bit more than an 8-hour trip. Riding a helicopter, hanging out on a gunboat to get a perspective of the border. Obviously, he was down there to check out, border security operations and probably to report back to President Trump about the dynamics of a wall and trade and things. But they were saying it would also be helpful if he spoke with trade brokers and people that whose bread and butter is the Texas-Mexico economy, which, as we all know, a lot of people are worried about what's going to happen moving forward with a proposed border tax, with a wall, with reworking NAFTA and things of that nature.
You had Sid Miller, our ag secretary, kind of going against what many people thought when you hear about Republicans supporting the border wall, saying that that would really hurt the agricultural community and economy, right?
Well, he didn't say that he doesn't still support the wall, and obviously beefed up immigration enforcement, but he did take a different tone with respect to when you compare him to the president. He said, Mexico needs to have input. If we're going to do this, we need their cooperation, we need their input. We can't just do it without knowing what the consequences are. And with respect to immigration, he said, which was actually surprised some folks, he said, the president has migrant labor working in his hotels, he's got custodians and housekeepers, so he was sort of pushing for a reworked legal immigration system. But he didn't say that the wall is a bad idea. He just said, we need to have input from our southern neighbor, which is a big difference from the president saying, we're going to pretty much do what we want and, send them the bill.
Can you imagine what the Trump administration thought when, they heard those words from Miller? I mean, considering he was maybe on the finalist list for one of the cabinet positions?
Yeah, this is a tough issue for Texas Republicans on every level, because here, I think you're not going to hear a lot of people openly come out in favor of the border, because if you spend a lot of time on the border, you realize building a wall is impossible and it's kind of counterproductive. But by the same token, they don't want to come out and anger the Trump administration on some level and say, no, this is a bad idea. So I'm sure they were probably sort of surprised to hear Agricultural Secretary Miller mention the sort of call out Trump's companies by name, but maybe not so much the sort of delicate dance that they have sort of maybe supporting the border, but not expressly so, because it's not really all that popular here in Texas.
With everything that happened with these lawmaker visits this week, you know, seeing how those lawmakers from Washington reacted, do you think it made any kind of change or impact or opinion sway one way or the other at the state capitol?
Well, at the state capitol, I mean, I think it's still interesting how this is going to affect the budget, right? I mean, you know, if Trump builds this wall that he's promised to build, maybe that means that Texas doesn't have to spend the $1 billion that the Department of Public Safety has asked for to secure this area. But we're not really going to know until long after the session's over how much, if there's any success in that area or not, and if they actually do crack down on the border or build a border wall like he said. But if you look at the draft budgets from each of the two chambers so far, they haven't actually appropriated $1 billion. They appropriated a little bit less. You know, in the case of the House, it's about $660 million, which is a lot less money, but it's not going to sort of change the budget completely. But the real thing is that whenever you cut border security, it's not very popular. So it could be that we actually end up spending a lot of money, even if there is a crackdown from the Trump administration. It all comes down to money.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to make these budget decisions before, you know, the session's out at the end of May, and, you know, that might not fit the federal timetable, right? I mean, the border wall is supposed to start construction in, what, 6 months, according to President Trump?
Right. There was an email sent from DHS, from the Department of Homeland Security on Friday, early afternoon, saying they're going to go out for RFPs, requests for proposals, but it'll be a slow process. And I think what Will alluded to is lawmakers still have to probably do a pretty delicate dance, because it's bad PR, right, to cut border security spending, but then at the same time they're hopeful the Trump administration will work. But are they going to see enough by late May when they gavel out to be able to pull the trigger or not pull the trigger? But what you said with respect to the budget, you know, the House is the one that cut back, you know, the $100 million and change versus the Senate. So, you know, to be a fly on the wall during conference committee when the budget's being hashed out would be pretty interesting, at least on Article 5, which is border security.
We got just a few seconds left. I wondered, what do you think this is going to do for campaigns for the next election cycle? Because so many Republicans ran on border security now, and there's so much changing.
Well, I think that's why they have to be seen as being for border security under any circumstances, but maybe not paying the same amount of money or having as much money. And the way you get around to say, well, we can let the federal government do their job, and if we haven't built the border wall yet, let's wait 2 years and see what happens.
Great. Thank you both for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
All right.
The nickname for mobile homes within the mobile home industry, they call them wobbly boxes.
Oversized and on the road, why our discovery has state leaders rethinking safety surrounding mobile homes on the highway. A special report coming up. But first, if your family lost its home in a fire, you'd want help, right? What do you do when your insurance company refuses to pay up? The solution will be a lot clearer soon, thanks to a KXAN investigation. Straight ahead on State of Texas. Fires, floods, and car crashes. When disaster strikes, you depend on your insurance company to help you put your life back together. But sometimes insurers refuse to pay, so who do you turn to then? That's why the Texas Department of Insurance is here. Right on its website, it says it can help resolve complaints against insurance companies, assisting Texans in getting back millions of dollars each year. But we discovered that's usually not the case. And because KXAN investigator Brian Collister's report, TDI promises it will be more clear about how it can help you and how it cannot.
There was a lot of hail damage. Hit this roof hard.
A winter storm hammered Carol Fredenberg's Onion Creek home back in 2015.
It almost looked like snow cone stuff. That's because it was hitting my roof and breaking up and making damage.
A roofer told her it needed to be replaced. But her insurance company, State Farm, said the damage only affected part of her roof and would not pay for a new one.
Well, they said that's not covered, so you're out of luck. This is where he took pictures.
Carol even went to an appraisal hearing, and an independent appraiser ruled in her favor, but State Farm still wouldn't pay.
If you file a complaint, we'll be happy to go to the insurance company on your behalf.
So Carol turned to the Texas Department of Insurance.
State Farm says, we're going to ignore that, and we're just going to pay what we think you have hail damage on. I was hoping that the state would investigate.
The TDI website said it could help with claim denials and when the company is paying too little. But months later, Carol got this letter from the state agency saying it could do nothing, and she'd have to file a lawsuit against the massive corporation to get the money she wanted. And she's not alone. KXAN's analysis of state records show TDI confirmed or ruled 22% of consumer complaints were valid, and the company should pay up. The other 78%, TDI said it could not confirm the complaint. Of that number, more than half are cases where TDI simply says it can't help and tells consumers like Carol their last resort is to hire an attorney and fight their insurance company in court.
They're misleading consumers in this process.
The insurance watchdog organization Texas Watch thinks consumers deserve more assistance.
They go through this lengthy process that takes months, and then in the end are told, actually, we can't help you, go find an attorney. We find that very frustrating on the behalf of the consumer.
My testimony today.
KXAN asked to speak with Insurance Commissioner David Maddox. Our request was denied. Instead, we got the agency's spokesperson.
For the consumers who haven't gotten help from TDI, what do you say to them?
Well, we do everything that's within our power in the law to make sure that the companies are following the law and that they're honoring their insurance policy.
TDI says it cannot help when there is a dispute of coverage.
We can't make a medical judgment. We can't determine negligence. So there's certain things that are just beyond our authority to do, and that's really the area that the civil courts are there for.
This was damaged. This was damaged.
Carol eventually sued State Farm. And the day her case was set for court, the insurance giant settled up and paid.
They know if they say no long enough and just deny everything and you get no help from any of your state agencies or anything, you can't do anything. They just keep saying no, no, no. And people usually don't have time to fight it back.
We reached out to State Farm about Carol's case. It had no comment. But because of our investigation, the Texas Department of Insurance is already promising changes. The agency says it will now take steps to make it clearer on its website what types of complaints it can and cannot help resolve. And for the first time on our website, we're listing the top reasons TDI says it can't help and the reasons that you'll have to go to court to fight your insurer. Also, which companies are most often the ones where TDI cannot help you. Brian Collister, KXAN Investigates.
Thanks, Brian. This legislative session at the state capitol, lawmakers are tackling what many see as excessive lawsuits against insurance companies. Senate Bill 10 does not prevent policyholders from suing their insurer, but it does aim to stop lawyers who actively recruit clients after an event like a hailstorm. Supporters like Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick claim an increasing number of Texas attorneys are only padding their own pockets to increase premiums for home and business owners, forcing some insurance companies out of business. Texas Watch points out a TDI report showing only up to 2% of cases actually go to court. But the report also found the number of lawsuits has increased by 1,400% in the past 5 years. Oversized and on the road, our discovery has state lawmakers talking about the safety system surrounding mobile homes hauled on Texas highways. A KXAN investigation coming up. Oversized and on the road, two separate houses being moved, then stuck on Austin streets late last year. And a wind turbine blade that took a wrong turn. When problems like that happen, they're not only an inconvenience for other drivers, but they can also be dangerous, even deadly. Like it was for a mother and son who died after colliding with a mobile home off route in Bastrop County. After we first investigated the problem 2 years ago, state leaders told us they were working to give the Department of Public Safety more money and resources for inspections of oversized vehicles like semi-trucks. But we discovered the legislature actually rejected nearly $100 million in funding for that very purpose. Now, KXAN investigator Robert Maxwell reports the problem is now popping up in another on-the-road industry, mobile homes.
She wasn't just my wife, she was my best friend. We did everything together.
Michael Field's wife, Aline, was driving home on Highway 79 in Round Rock in November of 2014. Just ahead of her, two tractor trailers, each hauling half of a mobile home, stopped on the side of the road after a wheel came off. Arlene slammed into the rear of one of them.
Oh, God. I suddenly became the sole caretaker of 2 young children.
Photos show the 16-foot wide load partially inside the lane.
I lost my partner in life. I mean, the world stopped for a while.
Michael received a payout from the hauler, Glenn's Mobile Home Service.
Do you have any idea why the wheel came off?
Other than the tires and axles are recycled, they're reused over and over.
The company's drivers were called to testify in a lawsuit Michael filed against mobile home manufacturer Palm Harbor Homes and its parent company, Cavco Industries. Among the suit's allegations, the companies failed to remedy the dangers of wheels falling off mobile home trailers, and that tires flying off the axle or going flat was so common that movers of manufactured homes would drive with several spare wheels, just in case. The owner of the hauling company says in this deposition he tried to discuss the issue repeatedly with Palm Harbor.
They keep building the houses bigger and heavier, and it seems they're inclined to put less axles under them than they used to.
In their response to the lawsuit, Palm Harbor and Cavco Industries deny the allegations and any wrongdoing. We checked Cavco's federal safety record and found 14 safety and maintenance violations in the past 2 years. For the 2 Palm Harbor entities in Texas, 24 safety violations in that same time period. None of those involve hauling a mobile home. These companies are not alone. We found lawsuits across the state against others. The allegations? A tractor trailer's tires came off, injuring another driver. A hauler died in a rollover because the truck, trailer, and tires weren't properly maintained. And another driver was injured in a crash when a mobile home blocked part of the road.
Do you feel these regulations are stringent enough to prevent unexpected failures?
I've personally seen these homes taken through a lot of things that they were not designed to be taken through.
A private mobile home inspector tells us meeting federal guidelines is required before the homes leave the factory. After that point, inspections can be spotty.
I've also seen them transported down the road at speeds that are way excessive and beyond what the regulations allow.
Once they're on the road, it's up to law enforcement, namely the Texas Department of Public Safety, to look for violators and pull over any oversized vehicles. And state inspection stations are also supposed to help catch less obvious safety hazards. Despite some lawmakers' support, budget decisions at the Capitol mean DPS can't keep inspection stations open 24/7. In fact, the number of staff at those stations has gone down since the last legislative session. But DPS has requested more money for commercial vehicle enforcement this session. It would be enough for an additional 15 high-tech inspection stations and to upgrade technology at other existing stations. DPS has told lawmakers that a smaller budget would reduce the agency's ability to remove unsafe commercial drivers and vehicles from the highways.
We want all of our commercial trucking and commercial hauling to be acting with the utmost safety.
Representative Ron Simmons, who sits on the House Transportation Committee, says oversized vehicles remain a funding challenge.
Our overall transportation is making sure that we have the right amount of money going into the right projects. Safety is always a priority, so under our safety net, I think that'd be something we look at. Basically, all I'm looking for is closure from everyone.
Michael Fields says he hopes his wife's death helps wake up lawmakers and the mobile home industry.
So of all this sorrow, maybe there's a positive takeaway?
There can be if it makes some changes in the system, step up and do the right thing. Fix those problems.
That was Robert Maxwell reporting. We reached out to Palm Harbor and Cavco Industries for comment. Neither would speak to us because of the pending lawsuit. We also discovered last year DPS inspected more than 450,000 commercial vehicles. This year, with less money, the agency expects to inspect 15% fewer vehicles. We will check back with lawmakers this session as they craft the state budget to see where this funding concern lands. We found out there's another state agency that regulates oversized vehicles and companies, but usually only conducts inspections or audits after a complaint comes in. In the last 5 years, the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles received more than 2,800 complaints about this type of vehicle. Most of those come from DPS after troopers issued a citation or after a crash involving an oversized load. We have asked DMV's head of enforcement why its investigators don't look at mobile home trailers before they hit the road.
I don't believe it would be feasible considering the number of permits that we issue each year. There's literally tens of thousands of permits issued. We're relying on the trucker, the motor carrier, to provide us the proper information so we issue the correct permit.
DMV does issue permits for commercial vehicle drivers, which is the only type of permit a person hauling a mobile home needs. However, there are other guidelines they have to follow, like specific travel routes for oversized loads. So what should you look for if you believe a mobile home on the highway might be a safety risk? DMV rules show if the load is wider than 16 feet, it needs to have flashing lights, signs reading wide load, and at least one pilot or escort vehicle. Right now, online, we have links on where you can send your complaints to start the ball rolling on a possible inspection. Just check out this story in the investigative section of KXAN.com. Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas. Stay tuned for Meet the Press coming up at 9. I'm Josh Hinkle. Have a great day.